Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking about Episode 8 of Season 2 of Ultimate Spider-Man called Carnage. First of all, a quick apology to everybody for this review going up so late. Work was just really kicking my butt this week. So, sorry about that. Anyway, let's get right into it. Overall, I thought this was a reasonably solid episode. I certainly did like what they did with the Green Goblin, and it's definitely been overdue for us to check in with Harry. But there's some other aspects of this episode, most of them, as always, relating to the Amazing Friends, that I'm not so thrilled about. Okay, first of all, I do like that the Goblin is a little bit more in keeping with the traditional Green Goblin. The way they did him in Ultimate Spider-Man, he was this very physical. Well, honestly, it sort of looked like what you'd get if you merged the Goblin with the Hulk. You know, the Goblin was a purely physical character in many ways. I always liked the fact that the Goblin was much more of a dark counterpart to Spider-Man. You know, he had the brains, he had technology going on. He was very smart. In many ways, Norman Osborn was just what Peter would be like if he did not have what Peter could have become if he did not have that really solid and good moral compass instilled in him by Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Now here we get to see him, using the Goblin Glider, kind of doing a little bit of his bat-related technology. And again, I like all that. It's, as I said, just more in keeping with what the Goblin is in the comics. Now, are we going to see him flying around in the purple and green outfit with the windsock hat anytime soon? Probably not. And, as much as I love classic Marvel Green Goblin, that's probably for the best. Especially with the windsock hat. I don't know what that's called in the real world, but that's what I call it. But anyway, I do sort of like that Peter kind of even jokes like, hey, you're not the only one who's spent his allowance on cool tech. That might not exactly be it word for word, but that actually was very close to what was going through my mind while I was watching that particular scene. Now, after that, we do get to see Peter spend some time with Harry, and as I said, it's been way too long since we've checked in with Harry, and I do like that they even acknowledge this in the show. Harry is feeling genuinely resentful that Peter has not really been there for him as his best friend, and, given everything that's happened, I mean, especially with, the whole Harry's dad is a monster and all that, Peter really has dropped the ball on his friendship with Harry. And, that Peter-Harry friendship, that is actually a very interesting thing to see in the comics, because in the comics, at one point, Harry was the Green Goblin. It is interesting to see that one of his closest friends was also, at one time, his enemy, but that's also true in the comics of Flash Thompson. Flash Thompson, as a character in the comics, he grew up, he matured, he grew out of that whole being a high school jerk thing. And he and Peter are actually genuinely very solid friends. And I've always liked that aspect of him. It shows that people do change. I mean, I'm certainly different than how I was in high school in some ways. Still the same in some ways as well, but I like to think that generally the ways I've changed since that time in my life are positive. Now let me see here. But getting back to what's going on with the Goblin, we get to see the Amazing Friends throw down with Gobby and get their butts completely and utterly kicked. It really does amaze me how competent the Amazing Friends tends to fluctuate so wildly on this show. I mean, it's all whatever the plot demands, but it's just, come on. I mean, remember, when they were much less experienced than this, the Amazing Friends tangled with Doctor Doom and managed to survive. I mean, okay, granted, it was a Doombot at the end of the day, but still, that's pretty impressive. But anyway. Now, honestly, the thing that I really liked best about this episode was the whole Norman going like, Peter Parker, you are my true son, this sort of thing. Because that was actually going through my head that, like, wouldn't that be interesting if the Goblin was there to kidnap Peter rather than Harry? And of course, that's exactly what happened. And that's really a great plot twist. That is 100% in keeping with Norman's line of thinking, what we've seen with him before. It's certainly got to be a knife in the heart for poor Harry, and of course, this is going to absolutely horrify Peter. And of course, there's the whole incredible irony of the Green Goblin essentially choosing Spider-Man as his true son. I mean, just beautiful, beautiful stuff. That sort of irony and symmetry of storytelling is really what makes comic books story so well. And it's something that Stan Lee, of course, co-creator of Spider-Man and basically the guy who made half the Marvel Universe on the writing side, for the most part, he did that so well. So I really like seeing the sort of ironies and themes that Stan really made at the foundation of the Marvel Universe coming to the forefront here in this show. And of course, we get another cameo by Howard the Duck, which is always nice. Now, getting back to the Amazing Friends for a minute, one thing I do have to really criticize here is that White Tiger seems to have some pretty ridiculously good intuition. I mean, she's like, he might see Peter as his true successor or his true son or something like that, and then later on she makes a really great guess as to what's going on or where they are or something like that. It's just like, look, I get that White Tiger is probably mentally the most mature and reasonable and probably smartest of the Amazing Friends, but you're really pushing her intuition there. I mean, you do need to have evidence in order to reach logical conclusions. Here it's really Tiger is just picking stuff out of the air, and that's not, even smart people need facts and information to work with. So I really got to call BS on that. Now, one thing I will not call BS is when we saw Spider-Man mixing it up with the Goblin again, we get to hear some of that really cool, really awesome music from when they had their big showdown last season. Very nice use of the music there, which of course all leads us into Peter being turned into Carnage. Now, Carnage is pretty different than his counterpart in Ultimate Spider-Man and I really can't, in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, and I really can't talk about how different because that's just, as they say on TV tropes, a walking spoiler. I mean, but still, Ultimate Comic Spider-Man version of Carnage was quite interesting. I'll put it that way. And of course, we do see that Venom and Carnage do not like each other. That is, again, very much in keeping with the comics. Now, of course, Carnage here is very much toned down from how he is in the comics. If you've ever read the Maximum Carnage storyline, that's probably Carnage's most famous story. First of all, you have my condolences because it's a really terrible story, and even the guys at Marvel said that, yeah, Maximum Carnage sucked, and in-house we called it Maximum Garbage. It was really just made to cash in on the fact that Carnage was popular. And Carnage's thing in the comics is that he's bonded to a serial killer who likes to kill people. I mean, he's really just like if Spider-Man became the Joker. And actually, if you want to read a decent Carnage story, read the Batman Spider-Man crossover where Carnage and the Joker do meet and ultimately decide, wow, I completely hate you, and try and kill each other, which is actually kind of cool. But yeah, so yeah, you can't really do the whole murder fest version of Carnage on the show, but I still think that they did a reasonably competent version of what we got on here. Carnage is scary, he's violent, and the fact that it's Peter trapped inside there is really just honestly horrific. I mean, poor Peter, right? I mean, imagine how horrible it would be if he'd been, slaughtering people left and right the way Carnage does in the comics. But again, we're not really on that kind of a show. And of course, the whole team up with Venom thing, that's another really classic thing. Venom absolutely hates basically absolutely hates all other symbiotes. It's sort of in their nature to be that way. So him barely tolerating working with Spider-Man, even though, well, anyway, basically Venom having to tolerate Carnage or tolerate Spider-Man, again, classic stuff from the comics. Let me see. One thing though, at when Spider-Man is in the base, getting ready, dealing with the whole Goblin thing, he's sort of like, okay, now the Amazing Friends can follow my signal and track me here. It's like, well, why didn't you activate that before you left Harry's apartment, and just tell the Amazing Friends like, okay, guys, hang back, hang out on the next block, and then I'll do that again, and that means come running. But again, it's just this is what the characters have to be dumb for plot reasons. I mean, exactly how much is that shield training paying off here? I mean, yeah, maybe they're getting a little bit better at beating up on guys, but they're certainly not really getting better on, planning or strategy or reasonable precautions. Okay. Now, I have to say that Iron Fist doing his impersonation of Spider-Man, that was genuinely rather funny, and I also got a kick out of that because in the comics, Iron Fist has at least once put on a Spider-Man suit and helped to impersonate Spider-Man to help Peter cover up his secret, deal with his complications of his double life. He actually did the same thing with Daredevil one time too. So again, that was something I thought was a nice touch. But anyway, overall, as I said, reasonably solid episode. Certainly is moving forward the plot lines regarding the Goblin and Harry. Of course, again, we're not done with the Goblin. I like that he's going to continue to be a serious thorn in Peter's side. I like that. Of course, the fact that Harry was Venom has not been forgotten, and well, you gotta wonder now that Shield has the Venom symbiote in custody, if that isn't gonna blow up in their faces somehow, because well, as we've seen, Shield sucks at keeping anybody or anything that's actually dangerous in custody. Oh well, such is the life of Peter Parker, the Amazing Spider-Man. Oh, I'm sorry, the Ultimate Spider-Man. Anyway, folks, that's all I got for you this time. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at HoosierJedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.